Namaste and welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Surrender Yoga. I just came in from outside, so I might be a little bit flushed. It's gorgeous out there in my part of the world. The world is definitely coming alive. Grass is green, trees are all leafed. I now have my cherry blossoms have come and gone. My pear tree blossoms are out. The apple tree blossoms are coming out, and it smells so heavenly. Lilies of the valleys are everywhere all over the ground, and they smell lovely as well. I hear every song I can think of regarding the birds, or the birds are singing. I hear robin song and chickadees, and of course I have a crow that comes and visits me. We've befriended each other. He knows he's going to get food from me, so he lands on the line above where I sit, and we have a little convo before I go and get him food, and he keeps coming back. I also hear the song of the blue jays, flickers, doves, morning doves, waiting to get their mate, and of course there's starlings and greckles and everything else up there. So it's a beautiful, beautiful experience just to sit out there and be when the sun is shining on your face and the clouds are passing over your head. So anyway, that was a long ramble just to say how much I'm appreciating life right now. I have been in the last little bit having a hard time, with human suffering and human drama. It's hard to be human, it definitely is. And when you realize that the human component of us is not all there is a being in here that can see the world through its eyes rather than these human eyes and this ego that has been created by it. When we stop focusing on the human drama and pull back a little bit and see all of it, we have a better experience of life. We can appreciate it all. We see the oneness and the essence and everything. Speaking of such, that's why I'm here today. I'm not going to answer a question from the jar, but I just finished this lovely book, Siddhartha, by, of course, it's going to probably show up backwards for you guys, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, and of course he won a Nobel Prize for his books. He was a poet and a novelist and a very enlightened being by the reading that I've just done. He talked about a man named Siddhartha, no, not the Buddha, but another man by that name, during the time of the Buddha, who actually had an opportunity to meet the Buddha, who was also a seeker on the path to enlightenment. And during his journey through enlightenment, he encountered much of the things the Buddha has encountered: suffering and human, the human abundance and the greed and the lust that can come from that, as well as great loss and suffering. So this book was a wonderful introduction into another person's perspective on the waking up process. And to see this Siddhartha in this book meet and not reject the Buddha's teachings by no means, but he definitely deeply respected them, but thought that there was more than that, so he went on search for more, and that's when he ended up losing himself for many years, and then finding himself again, and then becoming attached in the human form of love again with his son, and then losing his son, and then having to come to the question, what is it all about? In this book, his greatest teacher proves to be a river, and in that river he hears the voices of all emerging into one sound, and that is the sound, often used in meditation. It is called the sound of creation, and the first sound in all religions. The is the sacred sound. So he heard all these voices of the past, all the good, the bad, the evil, the righteous, the suffering, pain, the love, the joy, the bliss, all merging into one at the end of this book. And I just should have said spoiler alert at the beginning of this, because I hope you read the book yourself. But anyway, there's one passage that I wanted to share. This is when he actually becomes enlightened. And he becomes enlightened when he realizes, when he stops seeking enlightenment, when he stops looking, when he stops talking about it, he stops doing something to get there, and simply listens. And listens to the river speak to him. And it's through the listening and the being that he comes to realization. So Siddhartha had listened. He was now nothing but a listener, completely concentrated on listening, completely empty. He felt that he now He had now finished learning to listen. Often before he had heard all this, these many voices in the river. Today it sounded new. Already he could no longer tell the many voices apart. Not the happy ones from the weeping ones, not the ones of children from those of men. They all belonged together, the lamentation of yearning and the laughter of the knowledgeable one, the scream of rage and the moaning of the dying ones. Everything was one. Everything was intertwined and connected, entangled 1,000 times. And everything together, all voices, all goals, all yearning, all suffering, all pleasure, all that was good and evil, all of this together was the world. All of it together was the flow of events, was the music of life. And when Siddhartha was listening attentively to this river, this song of 1,000 voices, when he neither listened to the suffering nor the laughter, when he did not tie his soul to any particular voice and submerged himself into it, but when he heard them all, perceived the whole, the oneness, then the great song of the 1,000 voices consisted of a single word, which was the perfection. Like, I read that and that just blew me away because it made so much sense to me. It resonated because I like to think someday that I will get to where Siddhartha was on that riverbank, being able to listen and seeing and hearing all things as emerging into one perfect sound, one perfect breath, one perfect moment. And that is most of our goals, whether we know it or not. In this passage, he does speak to the human tendency and his ability to disengage from that human tendency to become attached. Losing his son was a great loss for him, and it took him a great deal of time and suffering to step back from that as a human being and look at it as the consciousness and the awareness, being able to see it as just one of the waves in that ever-flowing river going everywhere and all at once. So that was his moment. Now, he did say he learned to do a few things in here that we all could learn to do. Listen attentively, number one. Instead of thinking about what we're going to say next or what we're going to do next, we can just listen to life. What is life showing us in this moment? What is showing up on our path? What is meant for us? And it doesn't mean that we don't do anything about it and we don't take action. We just listen for life to tell us what needs to be done. And we do what needs to be done with getting lost in this idea that we have to fix and change it all. So that's what listening attentively will do. Will take us away from our doing tendency and our speaking tendency, because words don't do it. Words are just concepts and ideas. They just come from that part of our mind that has personalized everything. And words will not give us the experience they are pointing to. They are just pointers. He talked about the song of 1,000 voices, and that's what it all is. And of course, I link that not only to Zen Buddhism and his Buddhist nature, he's becoming a Buddha, but I also link it to Taoism and, of course, the Way. Right? We hear a lot about the 1,000 in the Way. He neither listened to the suffering nor the laughter. In other words, he wasn't focusing on the good or the bad. He wasn't focusing on that which was pleasant and that which was unpleasant. They didn't affect him. They had no impact on him. He looked at the whole picture, seeing them all being threads of the same tapestry. And he wasn't using his dualistic mind to separate them into categories, to judge, and to determine what should be clung to and what should be pushed away. When he did not tie his soul to any particular voice, when he didn't get attached, when he didn't let the soul to become the soul, which of course is our awareness and our consciousness, to become so focused on one thing, a person or a thing, that we got lost in it. Our attachment was so great we saw ourselves as part of that. this, of course, he was learning to disidentify as a father and see himself as something greater. And even though love in the human form is a wondrous thing and we should all love and be in relationships, those outer world attachments that we call love are not the true love that's already inside us, brewing and ready to come out. They may open us up to that, but they may also close us to that. So that's why attachment in our form of love is not the true love that the river was speaking about. So when we learn to detach and not get submerged into those loves so that we drown in them, get lost, our focus and our attention and our concentration gets submerged as well, and we lose ourselves. We drown in those attachments. So he's saying that when he did not tie his soul to any particular voice and submerged himself into it, but when he heard them all. So when we get away from our me focus and all the attachments we have to certain people we call ours, mine, my, and their, ours, and we get away from that and step back and see that that's just a tiny little pinpoint of experience that we're focusing on as consciousness, we step back away and our lens widens and we get to see it all human beings as part of the picture, not just the special relationships we've decided were ours. Perceived the whole. So it's only when we step back that we can see everything, right? When we're right close to something, our focus is so narrow. The oneness, then the great song of 1,000 voices consisted of a single word, which was the perfection. So that like I've said, is every religion. Amen, Allah. That sound can be heard in so many different words that we praise or say in our prayers, but the word is just the vibration of creation, because remember, it's all vibration. It's all an energy vibrating in wavelets that gives us our existence. So when we say the we're honoring the Creator. We're honoring what is the essence of all that is beneath. And it's just one emerging in several different forms and in several different ways, and in several different voices. But those voices merge to make that one sound, and that is the perfection of life. The pain, the sorrow, the good, the bad, the right, the wrong. Those are just judgments. It all merges into one word, and that is perfection. Life is perfection. And I was listening to Thich Nhat Hanh a while I was sitting outside, and he just reminded me of the 3 things that we need to do in order to become fully attentive listeners. And that's to be mindful, use the energy, the 3 energies that we need to call forth, and those are the energy of mindfulness, of concentration, and of insight. And this little piece just had all that in it, the mindfulness, the concentration, and the insight. And I felt a little bit more mindful, concentrated, and insightful just from reading it. So that's what great literature can do. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. It may be of no benefit or no interest to you whatsoever, but it really impacted me. And I do hope you're out there enjoying this beautiful weather, if you're having it in your part of the world, or whatever weather you're having, because there's no good or bad, right? If it's pouring or torrential downpour, it's still beautiful because it's still part of that perfect Thank you so much for joining me, and I do hope you have an amazing day. Namaste.